Commander Lee Daho stood in the main hall of the Confederation flagship, watching alien leaders argue about humanity's fate. The massive room buzzed with angry voices in dozens of languages. His hands shook as he held the data pad containing evidence that would change everything. 3 months ago, Daho had been proud to serve as Earth's liaison officer. Humans had joined the Galactic Confederation only 50 years earlier, but they had earned respect. Earth scientists shared their discoveries freely. Human diplomats helped solve conflicts between alien races. Everything seemed perfect. Then Dr. Kim Huna made her terrible discovery. Huna had been studying tissue samples from different worlds when she found something wrong. The genetic patterns didn't match what they should be. Someone had been changing the DNA of living beings across many planets. The changes were subtle but deadly. Entire species were being slowly poisoned or made dependent on certain chemicals. When Daho and Huna investigated further, they found the truth. The Kaleth, one of the oldest and most powerful races in the Confederation, were behind it all. For hundreds of years, they had been conducting secret experiments on other species. They tested new weapons, created biological controls, and eliminated anyone who threatened their power. The evidence was clear. Medical records, communication logs, and scientific data all pointed to the Kaleth. Daho brought everything to Ambassador Park Ji-hoon, Earth's chief representative. Park was a calm man who had spent years building trust with alien governments. Even he couldn't hide his shock when he saw the proof. "This will destroy the Confederation," Park said quietly. "The Kaleth are founding members. Half the galaxy's trade flows through their systems. But we have to tell everyone," Huna insisted. "They're still doing it. Right now, people are dying because of their experiments." Park nodded slowly. "Yes, we do. Prepare everything. Make sure the evidence is perfect. The Kaleth will fight back hard. They were right to be careful." When the evidence was presented to the Confederation Council, chaos erupted. The Kaleth representatives denied everything. They called the humans liars and demanded to see the original data. Other alien leaders looked confused and frightened. Some species that had worked closely with the Kaleth began to worry about their own safety. For 2 days, the Council examined every piece of evidence. Expert witnesses testified. Scientists confirmed the genetic analysis. Everything pointed to Kaleth guilt. Daho began to hope that justice would win. Then the Kaleth played their final card. On the 3rd day, Kaleth Ambassador Vorthak stood before the Council with his own evidence. He claimed that humans were the real criminals. According to his data, Earth's rapid progress came from illegal experiments on alien refugees. He showed medical records that seemed to prove humans had been testing biological weapons on other species. Daho stared at the false evidence in horror. The documents looked real. The signatures matched known human officials. Even the dates and locations were accurate. Someone had spent years creating perfect lies to frame humanity. "This is impossible," Huna whispered. "Those experiments never happened. The medical data is fake, but the damage was done." The Kaleth had allies among the older races who controlled the Council's voting system. Fear spread through the assembly. If humans could create such convincing false evidence against the Kaleth, what else might they be hiding? Ambassador Park fought desperately to defend his species. He called on allies who had worked with humans for decades. He reminded the Council of Earth's contributions to galactic peace. He begged them to examine the evidence more carefully. "Humans have always been honest with this Council," Park said, his voice strong despite his fear. "We shared our technology freely. We helped end 3 major conflicts. We opened our worlds to inspection whenever asked." "Does this sound like the behavior of criminals?" Some delegates seemed to waver. A few smaller species that had benefited from human help spoke in Earth's defense. But the Kaleth had prepared for this too. They revealed classified communications that showed humans secretly mocking their alien allies. They presented evidence of human military buildups in border systems. None of it was true, but it was all perfectly crafted to destroy trust. The vote came on the 5th day. Daho watched from the observation deck as delegates cast their decisions. One by one, species that had once called humans friends voted for exile. The fear of the unknown outweighed years of cooperation. When the final count was announced, the result was devastating. By a margin of 3 votes, the Confederation had decided to expel humanity completely. All humans had 1 solar cycle to leave Confederation space. Any alien government that helped them would face the same punishment. Captain Yoon Minho received the exile order while commanding Earth's deep space vessel, Resilience, near the Outer Rim. His crew of both humans and aliens looked to him for guidance as they processed the shocking news. "Sir, what are our orders?" asked his first officer, a young human named Kim Dong-soo. Minho stared at the message for a long moment. "We go home," he said finally. "We gather our people and we go home." The evacuation began immediately. Human colonies throughout the galaxy received emergency orders to abandon everything. Families packed whatever they could carry. Scientists destroyed research that might fall into the wrong hands. Diplomats burned sensitive documents. Within weeks, millions of humans were fleeing toward Earth. Ships designed for cargo carried desperate refugees. Luxury vessels became transport ships. Military escorts protected the slow-moving convoys from pirates who saw opportunity in the chaos. Ambassador Park was among the last to leave the Confederation capital. As his shuttle departed, he looked back at the massive space station where he had worked for 20 years. The place that had once symbolized hope for galactic unity now represented humanity's greatest betrayal. "They'll regret this," Dr. Huna said quietly as she sat beside him. "When the truth comes out, they'll understand what they've done." Park wasn't so sure. The Kaleth had won completely. They had eliminated the one species that threatened to expose their crimes, and they had done it by turning the entire galaxy against humanity. As Earth came into view through the shuttle's windows, Park wondered what would happen to his people now. They were outcasts, banished from the stars they had hoped to call home. All they had left was each other, and the small blue world where humanity began. None of them could imagine that their exile would become the foundation for something greater than the Confederation had ever achieved. Engineer Choi Sung-jae had never seen Earth so crowded. From his position on the orbital platform, he watched as another refugee ship approached the planet. This was the 15th vessel this week, packed with humans fleeing from abandoned colonies across the galaxy. The numbers were staggering. Earth had been designed to support 12 billion people comfortably. Now 18 billion humans called the planet home. Food production struggled to keep up. Housing was scarce. The orbital habitats that Sung-ji helped design were filled beyond capacity. "We need more space," Admiral Han Soo-young said during the daily crisis meeting. Her tired eyes showed the strain of managing the largest refugee crisis in human history. "The Australian domes are at 200% capacity. The African platforms can't take any more people." Dr. Kang Woo-jin nodded grimly from his seat at the conference table. As Earth's leading expert in refugee integration, he had been working nonstop for 8 months. "We're doing our best, but people are getting desperate. There have been fights over housing assignments. Some groups want to return to space even though there's nowhere safe to go." The meeting was interrupted by an urgent message from Earth's traffic control. "Admiral, we have an unknown vessel approaching Earth. It's not human." Everyone in the room tensed. Since the exile, no alien ship had come near Earth. The Confederation had made it clear that helping humanity meant sharing their punishment. "What kind of ship?" Admiral Han asked. "It appears to be Vorthak design, but it's badly damaged. They're requesting emergency landing permission." The Vorthak were a peaceful trading species known throughout the galaxy for their honesty. They had been among the few voices that defended humanity during the exile hearings. "Let them land," Admiral Han decided, "but keep our defenses ready." The alien ship landed at the Singapore spaceport 3 hours later. When the airlock opened, 12 Vorthak emerged. Their blue skin was pale with exhaustion, and their usually bright eyes looked dim with fear. Their leader, a female named Zilara, spoke in broken English. "We seek sanctuary. Our world is gone. The Kaleth took everything." Dr. Kang was called to the spaceport immediately. Through careful translation, he learned the Vorthak's terrible story. After defending humanity in the council hearings, they had been labeled as human sympathizers. Kaleth corporations had suddenly canceled all trade agreements with their homeworld. Economic pressure had quickly turned into direct threats. "They said we chose the wrong side," Zilara explained through tears. "Kaleth warships appeared in our system last month. They demanded we publicly condemn humans or face the consequences. Our government refused. The consequences had been swift and brutal. Kaleth ships had bombarded the Vorthak homeworld's industrial centers. Millions had died. The survivors had scattered across the galaxy, but no one would help them. They were marked as enemies of the Confederation. You are the only ones who might understand, Zilara said to Dr. Kang. We have nowhere else to go. The request created intense debate among Earth's leaders. Resources were already stretched thin. Adding alien refugees would create new problems with food, housing, and cultural integration. Some advisors worried about Confederation retaliation, but Engineer Choi had a different perspective. They stood up for us when it mattered, he argued. How can we turn them away now? Admiral Han made the decision that would change everything. They can stay. We'll find a way to make room. The Vorthak settlement on Earth began in the Australian outback, where Choi's team rapidly constructed habitats designed for their specific needs. The aliens worked alongside human engineers, sharing their knowledge of life support systems and sustainable technology. But the Vorthak were only the beginning. 2 weeks later, another ship arrived. This one carried Zilani refugees, aquatic beings whose underwater cities had been destroyed by Kaleth mining operations. They had tried to present evidence of illegal resource extraction to the Confederation, but their case was dismissed. When they refused to stop protesting, Kaleth forces had poisoned their oceans. The Zilani were followed by the Tenraki, insectoid researchers whose homeworld had been used as a testing ground for Kaleth bioweapons. Then came the Morphic, shapeshifters who had been hunted because their abilities made them difficult for the Kaleth to control. Each group brought the same story. They had opposed the Kaleth or possessed evidence of their crimes. They had been silenced, exiled, or worse. Earth was their only hope for survival. Dr. Kang found himself coordinating the integration of dozens of different species, each with unique needs and cultures. The Zilani required specially designed water habitats. The Tenraki needed specific atmospheric conditions. The Morphic had dietary requirements that Earth's food systems couldn't naturally meet. This is impossible, Dr. Kang told his assistant during a particularly difficult day. We're trying to house 47 different species on a planet designed for one. The cultural conflicts alone are overwhelming. It was true. The Vorthak valued silence and meditation, while the Tenraki communicated through loud clicking sounds that could be heard for kilometers. The Zilani needed temperatures that made other species uncomfortable. Food preparation became a nightmare of competing dietary restrictions and safety requirements. But something unexpected began to happen. The different species started helping each other solve problems. Vorthak engineers worked with humans to design better air filtration systems. Zilani biologists shared techniques for growing food in harsh environments. Tenraki quantum physicists helped improve Earth's communication networks. Engineer Choi found himself leading mixed teams of humans and aliens, creating solutions that no single species could have developed alone. The Zilani understand biological systems in ways we never imagined, he explained to Admiral Han. When we combine their knowledge with human manufacturing techniques, we can build things that seemed impossible. The hybrid technologies emerging from these collaborations were remarkable. Organic computers that grew like living tissue but processed information faster than any machine. Construction materials that could adapt to different environmental conditions. Transportation systems that used biological and mechanical components together. Captain Yoon Min-ho, now commanding Earth's expanded security fleet, was amazed by the new ships they were building. These vessels are unlike anything in Confederation space, he reported. They're faster, more efficient, and completely adaptable to different crew requirements. The mixed crews were equally impressive. Human tactical thinking combined with alien sensory abilities and technological knowledge created teams that could handle challenges no single species could face alone. But the most important development was harder to measure. Despite the crowding, the resource shortages, and the cultural conflicts, something like hope was growing on Earth. The refugee camps were becoming permanent settlements. The temporary shelters were being replaced by real communities. We're not just surviving, Dr. Kang realized during a late-night planning session. We're building something new. Word of Earth's refuge began spreading through underground networks across the galaxy. Hidden communication channels carried messages about the planet, where outcasts and exiles could find safety. Where different species worked together instead of competing. Where the victims of Kaleth oppression could rebuild their lives. Admiral Han received regular intelligence reports about the galaxy's reaction to Earth's transformation. The Confederation leadership is concerned, her intelligence chief reported. There are rumors that several species are considering following the Vorthak example. You mean joining us? or at least questioning Caliph authority. The exile was supposed to isolate humanity and serve as a warning to others. Instead, it's created a sanctuary that's becoming more attractive than Confederation membership. As Earth entered its second year as a refugee world, Engineer Choi looked out at the sprawling multi-species cities that now covered much of the planet's surface. The view was chaotic but beautiful. Human skyscrapers stood next to Vorthak meditation towers. Zilani water gardens flowed between Tenraki research complexes. It wasn't the future any of them had planned, but it was becoming something extraordinary. 5 years had passed since the Great Exile, and Councillor Lim Jiho walked through the streets of New Geneva, marveling at what humanity and their alien friends had built together. The city stretched for hundreds of kilometers, a mixture of architectural styles that no single world had ever seen. Vorthak crystal spires caught the morning sunlight and cast rainbow patterns on the streets below. Human apartment blocks stood next to Zilani water gardens that flowed upward in defiance of gravity. Tenraki hive structures buzzed with activity as insectoid workers moved through transparent tubes between buildings. Morphic shops changed their appearance every few hours, adapting to the needs of different customers. "It's remarkable," said Captain Shin Nayan as she joined Lim for their weekly walk. As the leader of Earth's expanding fleet, she spent most of her time in space, but she always returned to see how the planet was changing. "When I left 6 months ago, this district was mostly empty land. Now it houses 50,000 beings from 12 different species." Lim nodded, though his expression showed the strain of managing such rapid growth. As head of the Interspecies Council, he dealt with the daily challenges of keeping so many different peoples working together. "Growth brings problems," he said. "Yesterday I mediated a dispute between Vorthak and Tenraki communities over noise levels. Last week it was Zilani and human groups arguing about water rights. The integration hadn't been easy. Each species brought their own traditions, needs, and expectations. The Vorthak valued silence and personal space, while the Tenraki lived in large communal groups that could be loud and chaotic. Zilani required access to large bodies of water, but their aquatic cities sometimes interfered with human infrastructure. The morphic ability to change shape made some other species nervous and suspicious. But we're solving the problems," Captain Shin pointed out. "That's what makes us different from the Confederation." She was right. Unlike the rigid hierarchy of the old galactic government, Earth's Interspecies Council encouraged all voices to be heard. When conflicts arose, representatives from every affected group worked together to find solutions. It was messy and sometimes slow, but it created answers that everyone could accept. The results were visible everywhere. Mixed neighborhoods where different species lived side by side. Shared public spaces designed to accommodate various biological needs. Translation systems that allowed real-time communication between beings who had never been able to speak directly before. Engineer Bei Tai-hyung had become the symbol of this new cooperation. His research teams included members from every refugee species, and their combined knowledge was producing incredible breakthroughs. In his laboratory beneath the New Geneva spaceport, humans worked alongside aliens to create technologies that surpassed anything in Confederation space. "Look at this," Bei said excitedly as he showed his latest project to a group of visitors. In his hands was a small device that looked like a cross between a computer chip and a living plant. "We call it bioquantum processing. It uses Zilani organic growth techniques combined with Tenraki quantum physics and human manufacturing precision. The device was revolutionary. It could process information faster than any traditional computer, but it also grew and adapted like a living being. It required minimal power, could repair itself when damaged, and could be programmed using simple biological commands. The applications are endless," Bei continued. "Ships that can think and adapt to new situations. Buildings that modify themselves based on who lives inside them. Communication systems that translate not just words, but emotions and concepts between completely different types of minds." The bioquantum processors were just one example of the hybrid technologies emerging from Earth's laboratories. Vorthak crystal growing techniques combined with human metallurgy had created material stronger than anything previously known. Morphic shape-shifting abilities studied by human scientists had led to adaptive armor that could change its properties instantly. Tenraki hive mind research had improved human understanding of group consciousness and collective decision-making. Captain Shin's fleet showcased these innovations best. Her ships were crewed by mixed teams of humans and aliens, each bringing their unique strengths to space exploration and defense. The vessels themselves were marvels of hybrid engineering, combining the best aspects of dozens of different technological approaches. "We're not just building better ships," Captain Shin explained to the Earth Defense Council. "We're creating something entirely new. Human tactical creativity, Vorthak patience and precision, Zelani biological adaptation, Tenraki quantum capabilities, morphic flexibility. When you put them all together, you get something greater than any single species could achieve." Her crews had been exploring regions of space that the Confederation had written off as worthless or too dangerous. They found resource-rich worlds in unstable systems, discovered new forms of life in environments previously thought uninhabitable, and established hidden colonies far from Confederation space. More importantly, they kept finding more refugees. Each exploration mission brought back new groups of displaced beings. The galaxy, it turned out, was full of species that had been oppressed, exploited, or exiled by the Confederation's power structure. Many had been hiding in remote systems for decades, afraid to reveal themselves. Others were recent victims of Kaleth expansion or political purges. "We found them hiding in the asteroid fields of the Kelsier system," Captain Shin reported after her latest mission. "The Nelvani, they're energy-based life forms that the Confederation classified as non-sentient resources. The Kaleth have been harvesting them for power generation for over a century. Each new group that arrived on Earth brought fresh perspectives and capabilities. The Nelvani could manipulate energy in ways that revolutionized power generation and distribution. The Keltor, silicon-based beings from high-gravity worlds, possessed incredible strength and durability that made them natural partners for construction and mining. The Yithran, gaseous beings who existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, offered insights into physics that human scientists were still trying to understand. Dr. Kang Woo-jin, now leading the Refugee Integration Department, had developed sophisticated systems for helping new arrivals adapt to life on Earth. "Each species teaches us something new about cooperation," he explained to a delegation of human leaders. "The Nelvani showed us how to share energy resources more efficiently. The Keltor introduced us to construction techniques that work in extreme environments. The Yithran are helping us understand space-time in ways that could revolutionize transportation." But the most significant change was cultural. Earth was becoming something unprecedented in galactic history, a truly unified multi-species civilization. Unlike the Confederation, where powerful races dominated weaker ones, Earth's refugee society was built on equality and mutual support. "We're all outcasts here," Counselor Lim often said at interspecies council meetings. "None of us has anywhere else to go. That shared experience makes us stronger together than we ever were apart." The council itself was proof of this principle. Representatives from every species participated equally in decisions affecting the planet. Disagreements were common, but they were resolved through negotiation and compromise rather than force or political manipulation. Word of Earth's success was spreading throughout the galaxy despite Confederation attempts to suppress information. Hidden communication networks carried stories of the refuge world where different species lived in harmony. Pirates and smugglers brought news of the incredible technologies being developed there. Even some Confederation citizens began to whisper about the planet where outcasts had built something better than the government that had rejected them. Intelligence reports suggest that several Confederation member species are reconsidering their loyalty, Admiral Han reported to the Earth Leadership Council. The Kaleth are increasing pressure on potential dissidents, but that's only making more species question the current system. As Earth entered its 6th year as a refuge world, the planet had become home to over 200 different species. The orbital habitats had expanded into massive cities in space. The ocean floors hosted thriving Zelani communities. Underground networks housed species that preferred darkness and pressure. The upper atmosphere was filled with floating cities for gaseous and energy-based life forms. It was chaotic, crowded, and sometimes difficult to manage, but it was also the most diverse and innovative civilization the galaxy had ever seen. "We've proved something important," Captain Shin said as she prepared for another exploration mission. "Different species don't have to compete and dominate each other. They can work together and create something better than any of them could build alone." Engineer Bay, loading new hybrid technologies onto the exploration ships, nodded in agreement. The Confederation was built on fear and control. We're building something based on hope and cooperation. I know which one I'd choose to live under. As the ships departed for their next mission, Earth continued to grow and change. The planet that had once been humanity's prison was becoming the foundation for a new kind of galactic civilization, one built by outcasts who had discovered that being different was actually their greatest strength. Agent Quan Dongyuk had been dead for 7 years, at least according to official records. The Confederation intelligence databases listed him as killed during the human evacuation, another casualty of the exile crisis. In reality, he had been living under a false identity in the heart of Confederation space, gathering information that would change everything. His message reached Earth through a chain of hidden communication relays that took 3 months to complete. When Dr. Song Aryam finally decoded the transmission in her laboratory beneath Seoul's ruins, she couldn't believe what she was reading. "This can't be right," she whispered as she studied the data. The information was staggering. Detailed records of Kaleth operations spanning centuries, financial documents showing massive cover-ups, and most shocking of all, a complete list of species that had been secretly eliminated or enslaved. Fleet Admiral Oh Seok-jin arrived at Song's lab within hours of receiving her emergency call. As the Supreme Commander of Earth's forces, he had seen many disturbing intelligence reports, but nothing had prepared him for this. "How many?" he asked quietly as Song showed him the evidence. 147 species over the past 500 years, Song replied, her voice shaking. Some were completely destroyed. Others were enslaved so subtly that they don't even realize what happened to them. The Confederation has been covering it up the entire time. The documents revealed a pattern of systematic oppression that made humanity's exile look like a minor incident. The Kaleth had been using their political influence to eliminate any species that posed a threat to their dominance. They created conflicts between neighbors, engineered economic collapses, and even staged fake alien invasions to justify military interventions. "Look at this," Song said, pointing to a financial record from 50 years ago. The Kaleth deliberately poisoned the Deltarian homeworld's water supply, then offered to provide clean water in exchange for mining rights. The Deltarians had no choice but to accept. Now they're completely dependent on Kaleth technology for survival. Agent Kwan's intelligence showed that similar operations were happening throughout the galaxy. Species that had resisted Kaleth expansion found themselves facing mysterious diseases, resource shortages, or sudden attacks by unknown raiders that were actually Kaleth forces in disguise. "They've been doing this for centuries," Admiral O said grimly. "Every major crisis in recent galactic history, the Vorthak trade collapse, the Tenraki research station explosions, even the refugee movements that brought all these species to Earth, it was all planned." The evidence revealed that humanity's exile hadn't been about covering up genetic experiments. It had been about eliminating the one species that consistently opposed Kaleth expansion and supported the rights of weaker races. Humans were too honest, too willing to investigate problems and speak out against injustice. They had to be removed before they could expose the larger conspiracy. We weren't just convenient scapegoats, Song realized. We were the primary target all along. Everything else was just preparation for getting rid of us. But the intelligence revealed something else that chilled both Song and Admiral O to the bone. The refugee species that had fled to Earth weren't random outcasts. They were the survivors of a centuries-long genocide. Every species now living on Earth possessed evidence, testimony, or technological knowledge that could expose Kaleth crimes. "They know," Admiral O said after reviewing the complete files. "The Kaleth know exactly what we've gathered here. Every refugee species carries pieces of the puzzle. Together, we have enough evidence to bring down their entire power structure." The realization brought a new urgency to Earth's situation. Agent Kwan's final message contained a warning that had taken months to reach them. A massive Kaleth armada was assembling at the edge of the galaxy. The force was far larger than anything needed for normal defense operations. "How large?" Admiral O asked Dr. Song as she analyzed the military intelligence. "Over 10,000 ships," she replied, her face pale, "including dreadnoughts that haven't been seen in active service for decades. This isn't a police action or border patrol. This is an extermination fleet. The target was obvious. Earth had become too dangerous to the Kaleth power structure. The planet housed too many witnesses, Too much evidence and too many species working together effectively. The refuge world had to be destroyed before its example could inspire rebellion throughout the galaxy. Admiral O called an emergency meeting of the Earth Leadership Council. Representatives from every refugee species gathered in the Great Hall beneath New Geneva, their faces grim as they learned the scope of the threat facing them. "We always knew this day might come," said Counselor Lim Jiho. "The question is, what do we do about it?" The debate that followed revealed the depth of change that Earth's society had undergone. 7 years earlier, humanity had been a single species focused on survival. Now they were part of a multi-species civilization that had developed its own identity and values. "We could try to negotiate," suggested Zilara, the Vorthak representative who had been among the first refugees to reach Earth. "Perhaps if we agreed to relocate to the Outer Rim, they would leave us alone." "No," said Threnk, speaking for the Tenraki communities. His clicking voice was translated instantly by the bioquantum communication system. "We tried that approach before. They will never stop hunting us as long as we can expose their crimes." Captain Shin Nyon had returned from her latest exploration mission to participate in the crisis planning. "We have advantages they don't expect," she pointed out. "Our ships are faster and more adaptable than anything in their fleet. Our crews work together in ways they can't understand. We're not the same scared refugees who fled here 7 years ago." Engineer Bei Taehyung nodded in agreement. "Our technology has advanced beyond anything in Confederation space. The bioquantum systems, hybrid materials, and adaptive designs give us capabilities they haven't seen before." But the numbers were still daunting. Earth's defensive fleet consisted of fewer than 2,000 ships, many of them converted civilian vessels. The Kaleth Armada outnumbered them 5-1 and possessed firepower that could destroy entire planets. "We need allies," Admiral O concluded. "The refugee species on Earth represent only a fraction of the galaxy's oppressed peoples. If we can reach the others, show them the evidence we've gathered, we might be able to create a larger resistance movement." Dr. Song had been quietly analyzing Agent Kwan's intelligence while the debate continued. "There's something else," she said, interrupting the discussion. "The Kaleth aren't as united as they appear. Some of their client species are already questioning the current system. The economic pressures they've been using to control other races are starting to backfire. The intelligence showed that the Confederation was facing internal problems that the leadership had been hiding. Several member species had begun secretly reducing their cooperation with Kaleth initiatives. Trade relationships were breaking down as more races discovered evidence of manipulation and exploitation. The exile was supposed to serve as a warning to potential dissidents, Song explained. Instead, it created a visible alternative that's making other species question why they accept Kaleth dominance. Over the following weeks, Earth's leaders developed a strategy that was as dangerous as it was ambitious. They would use their exploration fleet to contact oppressed species throughout the galaxy, sharing evidence of Kaleth crimes and offering them a choice: continue accepting subjugation or join the growing resistance. "We're not just fighting for our own survival anymore," Counselor Lim told the assembled representatives. "We're fighting for the right of every species to determine its own future." The decision was unanimous. Earth would not hide from the approaching threat. Instead, they would take the fight to their enemies, exposing the truth that the Kaleth had spent centuries trying to conceal. Captain Shin began preparing her ships for the most important mission in human history. They would carry more than weapons and defensive technology. They would carry hope to species that had forgotten what freedom looked like. As the preparations continued, Admiral O looked out at the sprawling multi-species cities that covered Earth's surface. In a few months, all of this might be destroyed by Kaleth weapons. But the ideas that had built this civilization, cooperation, equality, and mutual support, those could not be destroyed as long as someone remained to carry them forward. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the greatest threat to tyranny comes not from those who rule, but from those who have been cast out and forced to build something better from nothing. Supreme Coordinator Yu Jung-soo stood in the command center beneath Earth's surface, watching as the final preparations were completed. Around him, representatives from 200 different species worked together to coordinate the most ambitious operation in galactic history. In 12 hours, they would either free the galaxy from centuries of oppression or die trying. "All broadcast stations are ready," reported Ambassador Hyo Young-sik from his position at the communications array. Over the past 3 months, his teams had secretly established transmission relays throughout Confederation space. Hidden within asteroids, disguised as commercial satellites and carried by sympathetic traders, the network could reach every inhabited world in the galaxy simultaneously. Fleet status? Jungsu asked Battle Commander An Min-jung, who had become the tactical genius behind Earth's multi-species military forces. 2,000 ships ready for deployment, Min-jung replied. Mixed crews, hybrid technology, and full coordination protocols active. The Kaleth won't know what hit them. The plan was audacious in its simplicity. First, they would broadcast Agent Kwan's evidence to every world in the galaxy, exposing centuries of Kaleth crimes. Then, as the political chaos spread, Earth's fleet would engage the approaching armada using tactics and technologies that the enemy had never encountered. Signal from the outer perimeter, called out Captain Shin from her flagship in Earth's orbital defense grid. The Kaleth fleet has entered our sensor range. 10,200 ships confirmed. They'll reach Earth in 18 hours. The enemy armada was massive beyond imagination, dreadnoughts the size of small moons, accompanied by thousands of smaller vessels all bristling with weapons capable of reducing planets to ash. At its head flew the Kaleth flagship Eternal Dominion, a vessel that had crushed rebellions across the galaxy for 3 centuries. Begin the broadcast, Jungsu ordered. Across the galaxy, billions of beings suddenly received the same transmission. On every communication device, every public screen, every data network, the evidence of Kaleth crimes appeared simultaneously. Financial records showing deliberate starvation campaigns, military logs detailing false flag operations, scientific data proving systematic genocide of entire species. The effect was immediate and devastating to the Confederation's stability. On Deltari Prime, crowds gathered in the streets as they learned that their water crisis had been artificially created. On Nexus Station, Confederation officials found themselves locked out of their own systems as local populations took control. Throughout the galaxy, species that had lived in fear for centuries suddenly understood that they were not alone. Reports coming in from across the galaxy, Ambassador Hio announced, his voice filled with excitement. 17 worlds have declared independence from the Confederation. The Deltari government has announced they're joining our alliance. 3 Kaleth client species have expelled Confederation representatives. But the Kaleth response was swift and brutal. Emergency broadcasts from their remaining loyal worlds declared the evidence to be fabricated human propaganda. Kaleth military forces began mobilizing to crush the spreading rebellions. The armada approaching Earth accelerated, determined to eliminate the source of the uprising before it could spread further. They're coming hard and fast, Captain Shin reported. No attempts at communication or negotiation. This is definitely an extermination run. Battle Commander Min-jung activated Earth's defensive protocols. The planet's surface was protected by energy shields generated using hybrid Zilani human technology. Orbital platforms bristled with weapons that combined the best aspects of dozens of different military traditions. Most importantly, the defending fleet was crewed by beings who had learned to work together in ways their enemies couldn't understand. Remember, Min-jung broadcast to all ship commanders, they think like a hierarchy. They expect rigid formations and predictable tactics. We don't fight like that anymore. The first engagement began at the edge of the solar system. Kaleth long-range scouts encountered Earth's outer picket fleet and found themselves facing something they had never seen before. Ships that changed configuration mid-battle, adapting to new situations in real time. Crews that shared information instantly through bioquantum networks, allowing collective decision-making faster than any individual could manage. Direct hit on the lead Kaleth cruiser, reported Lieutenant Kim Minji from her hybrid fighter craft. Their shields can't adapt to our rotating energy frequencies. The Kaleth had superior numbers and firepower, but Earth's forces had advantages that couldn't be measured in conventional terms. Human tactical creativity combined with alien sensory abilities to spot weaknesses that single-species crews would miss. Vorthak patience allowed for complex multi-stage strategies that unfolded over hours. Tenraki quantum manipulation made their ships nearly impossible to target accurately. As the battle intensified, more reports arrived from across the galaxy. The evidence broadcast was creating chaos in Confederation space. Some species were openly joining the rebellion, while others were paralyzed by internal conflicts between pro- and anti-Kaleth factions. The Moralan Confederation has switched sides, Ambassador Hio announced. They're bringing a fleet of 800 ships to our aid. ETA 6 hours. The Zelkari are jamming Kaleth communications in their sector. 3 more species have declared neutrality and are refusing to support either side. But the immediate threat remained. The main Kaleth armada was still approaching Earth, and despite the defensive successes, the numbers were overwhelming. For every enemy ship destroyed, 2 more took its place. We need to end this quickly, Supreme Coordinator Youngsu decided, before they can bring their full firepower to bear on the planet. Battle Commander Minjung had been planning for this moment. Operation Unity is ready for deployment, she announced. All species, all technologies, everything we've learned working together. What followed was unlike any battle in galactic history. Earth's fleet abandoned traditional formations and tactics entirely. Instead, they fought as a truly unified force where each ship's crew included members from multiple species, each contributing their unique abilities to the collective effort. Morphic infiltrators used their shape-shifting abilities to board enemy vessels and disable them from within. Nilvani energy beings overloaded Kaleth power systems by directly interfacing with their ship's energy cores. Yithran dimensional manipulators created spacetime distortions that made entire enemy squadrons disappear into pocket dimensions. Human commanders coordinated these diverse abilities into strategies that confused and overwhelmed their opponents. Kaleth admirals found themselves facing tactics that their military academies had never taught them to counter. The enemy flagship is attempting to withdraw, Captain Shin reported as the tide of battle shifted. Should we pursue? Negative, Commander Minjung replied. Let them go. Let them carry word of what they've seen here back to whatever's left of the Confederation. The Kaleth retreat marked the end of more than just a battle. Across the galaxy, the rebellion that had begun with Earth's evidence broadcast was spreading rapidly. Species that had been oppressed for centuries were finally free to choose their own destinies. Over the following months, the old Confederation collapsed entirely. Some Kaleth worlds surrendered and accepted occupation by Alliance forces. Others retreated to remote systems, promising to never again interfere with other species. The rigid hierarchy that had controlled the galaxy for millennia crumbled as its victims finally found the courage to stand together. In its place, something new emerged. The Free Worlds Alliance was built on the model that Earth's refugee communities had developed: cooperation instead of domination, equality instead of hierarchy, and mutual support instead of exploitation. It's remarkable, said former Ambassador Park Ji-hoon as he toured the new Alliance headquarters on Earth 20 years later. Now an elderly man, he had lived to see humanity's exile transform into the foundation for galactic freedom. When we were banished, I thought we had lost everything. I never imagined we were being given the chance to build something better. Earth remained the symbolic heart of the new alliance, but not as a ruling world. Instead, it served as a reminder that sanctuary and unity could triumph over oppression and division. The planet had evolved into a cultural and diplomatic center, where species from across the galaxy came to learn the art of true cooperation. Former Commander Lee Deho, now serving as an elder statesman on the Alliance Council, often reflected on the irony of their situation. The Kaleth thought they were destroying us when they forced us into exile, he said during a speech commemorating the Alliance's formation. Instead, they gave us the greatest gift possible, the opportunity to discover what we could become when we worked together instead of, apart. The galaxy had learned that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from those who rule from above, but from those who rise from below, carrying others with them toward the light. Earth's refugees had become the galaxy's liberators, proving that outcasts and exiles could build something more beautiful and lasting than any empire based on fear and control. In the end, humanity's banishment had become the galaxy's salvation. The small blue world that had once been a prison had become the foundation.